today's project, we are going to organise all of this into these using some of this foam board. So let's get straight on with it. Just a warning, this is a long video, so go get that cup of tea. The things you're going to need for this project is the drawer that you're making the inserts for, so that it's close by that you can take the measurements from. You need some foam board to create the dividers. You're going to need some rulers. I've got a straight edge metal ruler that I'm going to be able to cut the lines on the foam board, and I've got a smaller ruler for getting into all the gaps to measure up. You're going to need some knives. I've got a just a utility knife and a craft knife which has got a finer blade, and some replacement blades because for some reason the foam board does eat up your blades, so have some spares on hand. You'll also need pen, pencil, paper so that you can be marking things up, and your glue to stick it all together. The first thing I'm going to do is to measure the inside of the drawer so that I can cut my foam board to size. The height of the drawer is just over 9 centimetres, so I'm going to keep it to 9 just so that the drawer then closes.
The width of the drawer is 49.4. And I'm going to just check the back to make sure that it's square. Yeah, 49.4. And then I'm going to check the depth of the drawer, which is 35.8. And again on the other side, just to make sure that it's square. Yeah.
Now I'm going to take account for the thickness of the foam board on some of the pieces, and we'll come to that later, but I've got the main diameter so I can put the drawer to the side for the moment.
There are 4 drawers in the unit, and I need an organiser for each of them. So that's 4 organisers with a front, a back and 2 sides per organiser. I need 16 pieces in total, so that will be 8 pieces of the width and 8 pieces of the depth, and they need to all be cut to 9 centimetres.
So I am going to reduce the foam board to 9 centimetre slices, and then I can cut it down to the lengths that I need. The foam board that I've got is A1 in size. I'm not sure if that's the same around the world, but that's a UK size. And what I'm going to do to maximise the usage of each piece is I'm going to cut the back and front of each piece out of the width of the board, and then on another piece of board I'm going to cut the sides out, and I can actually get 2 sides out of 1 length of this foam board. So I'm going to do that now. Bits of advice when cutting foam board: make sure that you have a metal straight edge. I've got a metre ruler here, so that you've got something firm and safe to cut your lines with, because you don't want to be wobbling off and cutting any fingers. The other bit of advice is that with the Stanley blade, don't use the blade all the way out of the knife. Go back to about halfway so that it stops any wobble on the knife and that you are cutting 90-degree cuts. Because the foam board is thicker, you can veer off very easily. The other thing is, after every so many cuts, you'll need to turn the blade around because it will have dulled. And again, after so many cuts, change the blade altogether. That way you're keeping nice straight cuts and they'll be neat and tidy. There's our first strip, and I'm going to continue this until I've got all 16 pieces. My 8 pieces for the front and back, and I'm going to cut the side pieces. I have my 4 pieces off of the longer edge of the foam board, and I will cut them in half so that I've then got 8 side pieces for the drawers. But first I'm going to take the 8 pieces for the fronts and backs and cut them to the exact measurements that I measured earlier. using a metal ruler, and you'll see me using this one, but this is actually got a metal inlay in one side, so it is metal although it looks plastic. I'll be using this side on a shorter ruler just because it's easier to manipulate for these smaller pieces. I will be keeping all the offcuts because I'm going to use them as dividers later. Now to check that they fit. So the front is just, oh actually no, it does slide in. There we go, actually that's a nice fit. So now I'm going to re-measure the distance between the front and the back so that I can cut all the side pieces to this measurement rather than to the drawers measurement. So now what I need to do is cut the really long pieces into the 34.9s, and hopefully I will be left with a bit at the end that I can also use for dividers later on. Now to check the fit on those pieces. That fits nicely all the way round, and once the glue is applied, this isn't going anywhere. Now I have all the sides and the fronts and backs for the other 3 drawers. I'm going to put all this to the side and start with all the dividers and connecting up the first drawer. Before I glue any of the sides together, I need to work out how many dividers I need. Now I've gotten together a group of the items that I have, and what I'm going to do is eventually sit them all along each divider, but I need to know where the dividers are going to fit within the tray and how many I can fit in. So for this first one, what I'm going to do is work with my 2 smaller packets and measure how wide these are, how many I can fit in, and whether I need to do so many of this size, so many of the smaller size, or whether I have a whole drawer of this size and then a whole drawer of the little size. I've just got to work around the measurements and decide how many dividers I've got, and that is going to be different for anybody with any drawer, with any stock. You're going to have to measure up and decide what you want where before you go and cut. So I think for this drawer I am going to stick with just one size packet. I can get 5 rows in, so I need to cut myself 4 dividers. Before I cut the dividers, I need to bear in mind how I'm going to assemble this, and I'm going to cut the dividers so that they are the total depth of the drawer, because I'm going to cut slots in the front and the back for the dividers to slot into, so that in the future I can take them out, I can move them around, I can cut extra slots depending on how I want my stock or how much stock I've got of certain things, and it just keeps it flexible for the future. So I'm going to cut 4 dividers, 9 centimetres tall, but I'm actually going to cut them the depth of the total depth of the drawer. I now have my 4 dividers. Now clearly these are too long to just slot into place because I have measured them on the full width of the drawer, and that is because I now need to cut slots into the front and the back of the drawer pieces, and then cut a section out of each of the dividers on the front and the back so that then I can slot them into place and they're not going to move. I've taken the front and the back piece of the drawer insert out, and I'm going to line them up here on my cutting mat. And all I'm going to do is take one of the dividers and line it up with the edge. And draw a line on the inside so that I know that that is the thickness of the foam board on each end. I now need to do some math and split that inside measurement into 5 sections. So I now have 5 equal spaces, and I need to cut slots that go from one edge of the board. This is very rough, just so that I can show you. Halfway up, and then I'm going to make a matching piece to slot into that. I'm now going to take a piece of foam board and line it up over my marks and mark down either side of the foam board so that then I have some parallel lines and I know where I'm going to cut my slot. And that works out quite well either side of my marking, so I'm going to carry on and do that the rest of the length. And I need to just mark halfway. To a craft knife with a number 11 blade so that I've got a little bit more precision when I'm cutting these smaller spaces out. With any luck, I should be able to put another bit of foam board into that slot. There we go, fits perfectly. I now need to just mark up the slots again onto this piece, which I should be able to do very easily by overlaying it and marking them with a pencil, and then I can just cut them out. I now have the front and back piece done, and I just need to take the 4 dividers and cut a section out of the end. I'm going to do that by taking an extra piece of foam board, lining up all the dividers against it so that they're all level. Taking the same piece of foam board, moving it in to the edge. And drawing a line down the inside. So I know how far to cut in, and I'll do that on the other side. And on each piece, on each end, I'm going to find the centre of the piece, which is 4.5 centimetres, and draw a line. And then I'm going to cut out one part of that section, which leaves me with a tab that should slot in to the rest of the divider. The tabs on the dividers, and I can try and start to lock them in. So they all fit like that, and they're all holding together nicely. Now comes the moment of truth of whether it will fit in the drawer. I am so chuffed with that. That is the first time I've tried it, and I'm pleased to say it all fits. Now theoretically I don't need the 2 side pieces, but I am going to fit them because if at any point I want to put dividers into these so that I can separate my stock, I will need an end piece. So I am going to put them in. Now, I was going to glue that all together, but it is so solid, I don't think I'm going to have to. And in the future, that is going to help me because I can move it around, I can take it out, I can just adjust it whenever I want. And I'm pleased to say that all of my products fit nicely into each divider. so I can carry on and fill this up. Stands, I want to put a divider halfway down this section, and to do that one of the offcuts actually fits across that gap exactly, which was pure fluke, but it does. So I'm going to take out the two dividers, cut slots in the two dividers and cut tabs into this piece and then put it all back together. So there's my two main dividers, and I've cut the slots and I've cut my tabbed bit, and let's fit it all together. There we go. And that should just then divide my stock, and that's really all there is to this system, is just creating tabs and slots wherever you need them to join everything together. So let's continue sorting out that drawer. Sorry about that, my battery died. But as you can see, I've filled up this drawer, and that means I've been able to get rid of some of the baskets, and I am going to carry on and organise the rest of the drawers using this same system. To work out where I need the dividers for the next drawer, I have lined up the packets that I want to fit into the drawer, and I'm just going to mark where they sit on the back panel. The reason I'm doing it this way is because they are different sizes. It works better to just lay it out and mark where I need it, allowing enough space for the thickness of the foam board. And I'm just going to measure the gaps and just line them up slightly and cut the slots like that. This is the second drawer finished. As I fill it up, as with the first, I may want to add dividers to separate out my stock, but I just need to fill that up, and I'm going to move on to the third drawer. Exactly the same as with the other two drawers, I have worked out what stock I want to put into it, and I've gone for my slightly wider items, and I can fit 4 within the drawer, and that means that I only need 3 dividers. So I'm going to just take out the front and the back, work out where the dividers need to go, and get on and cut them. Third drawer ready to be filled up. On to the last drawer. And for this one, I have some random items that are left. So I have a basket of just bits and pieces, some key rings, bracelets, and I just need to put them somewhere. And I also have some things that aren't in packages. So what I'm going to do with this one is just divide it into 4, so that I have 4 sections that I can keep the bits and pieces in. And as with all the other drawers, I will be able to change this around as things do change. Now I've got to hope that the cuts that I've made are in the right orientation to fit all this together. A relief. Now I can continue and fill all of the drawers up. We now have a spare bed back, and this is how it's all been organised. This is the first drawer where I've got my Guardian Angel keyrings and my cotton reel keyrings. This is the second drawer where I've got my Guardian Angel zipper or phone charms, my Guardian Angel jewellery. I've got some spare stuff that I haven't yet put up for sale. And then I've got all my bottle cap keyrings on that side. This is the third drawer where I've got my resin and seashell jewellery. I've got some leftover bits from Christmas, and then my book keyrings. And finally the fourth drawer where I've got my angel dolly peg decorations. I've got some other bits left over from Christmas. I've got some key rings that I'm in the process of doing something with, and then I've got lots of bracelets which I think I'm going to put up for sale on eBay just to get rid of them. Chances are things aren't going to stay in that order, and I will shifty things around and move things as I add to my collections or as I sell things, but for the moment it's all in the drawers and it's out of sight, which is great. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it informative, and I will be back soon with another upload.